Hi, I'm Susan. Welcome to my studio. Today I have the coolest product I've ever found. I've never used this before, so you're going to learn as I go along how this works. It's called Blackout Clay. It's by Kato Clay, Donna Kato. We all know her, the godmother of all the polymer clay. Well, you add a little bit of this to your scrap clay or any colored clay you have, and you can turn it in to black clay. So the theory of this is that you take your scrap clay, whatever you have left over, a little bit of it till you get a black clay so you can use it for more things. Now, can you add this to other clays? That we're gonna see. So let's get started because I'm so excited to work with this product. I love Donna Kato and this is a genius idea. This is some Primo clay that I had that was black. I just want to have a clay to compare it to. This is the Kato clay, and my recommendation is to use small amounts and tint it. Now you can see it's getting on my fingers. It's got like an inky, kind of oily base to it. So I'm not going to say what percentage to add because I really think it's trial and error and it really depends on the base color of your clay. So say this was a dark blue, you're going to get a blue-black clay. If it's a dark red, you're going to get a purpley-black clay. So just take that in mind, but still, even if I have a purpley black clay or an eggplant clay, I could go pretty far with that. Now this is just a little bit. I'm gonna go even less. I'm thinking, let's try just that little amount and I'll be right back and see what that mixes into. And this is literally a smidge. And you can see it's all over my fingers, so that's why I don't wanna use too much. So percentage-wise, you can see how it's smeared onto the clay. Here, I'll start on this side. Percentage-wise, that's how much I'm using on the clay, and I'm going to smear it down to the same thickness. I'm using just a tiny, maybe 5% of it is this clay, and I'll be right back to see how this dyes this clay, but as you can see, you're definitely going to need gloves or some baby wipes to clean up after. Now that 5% definitely darkened the clay, but didn't take it to black. We're not quite there yet. But even still, if that's all I had was just a little bit of that, that darkened it up enough that it's actually a prettier color than what I had. That had a lot of white in the base that makes it quite chalky, which makes it harder to color. And that's why Donna can't recommend an exact amount of clays. She can't say it's 10%, it's 20%. It's trial and error. And we're all clayers, we all understand. So I'm going to add this big hunk to it now, see how far that gets me, and see what the difference is. And then I'm going to go get some brands of clay and see how they mix. Now this is Primo and Fimo clay mixed. It just happens to be what I had left over. It probably has a little Kato in it. I do mix all my clays, and yes, you can mix clays. Just remember that when you add something like Sculpey 3 or the lesser clays, you're going to weaken your clay. So I always try to stick with Primo, Fimo, and Kato. Those three clays are the stronger, softer clays, and I try to mix those only. I try to stay away from the Sculpey 3 and only going to be using Primo, Fimo, and Kato. Now here I have a mix of Primo, Fimo, and Kato clays, and that's why I want to see how this works. Those are the three stronger clays, and I want to see what I get out of this. This is a really pretty color, and personally I would have kept this color and just used it in my creating because I like this color. It's like a dark chocolate brown. I know you're all looking for me to get this to black, so I'll continue adding until I get black, and I'll figure out approximately the percentage, but it's going to be different with every clay, so just recognize that it'll be a different amount. Now I want to show you, here's the bar, and I used this teeny weeny little sliver out of here. So I'm just going to add a little bit more, which is just a thin little sliver once again, which is, I'd say about 5%. I prefer, like, if I had a white clay and I'm adding color to it, I like to add just a little bit every time till I get that right shade versus throwing it all in and then you have too much, because when you get to black, you're not going to know if you had too much or you didn't. It's better to get it close to black and realize that you had the right amount, because why do you want to waste all your blackout clay if you don't have to? I want to keep this, it's precious to me. And that took me pretty close. I'm not quite there yet, but think of this as you're using your scrap clay, think of it as white clay, and think of your blackout clay as a color, and you just add tiny bits as you go till you get that exact shade you want. Like I said, I would have kept this color just as it is, so I'm just adding one more last little smidgen, and you can see as I get a little bit closer, it's pretty hard to tell between the two. It's pretty close, so I should hit it probably with this time. And let me show you the percentage I've used is still quite small on that giant bar. Well, I got my black. Here's the Primo black. Here's my black. I'm gonna stop here because I think this is really close enough. This has a lot of gold leaf in it. It's making it a little bit lighter. So the question is, how will this bake up? How will this sculpt? I really don't know. It did not make my clay a whole lot softer. It kept it about the same consistency it was. So I'm going to sculpt a bunch of flowers out of all these different clays that I use. I'm going to mix it with Fimo Primo. Now to see how it works with different brands, I have a package of Primo Fuchsia because I don't really have just solid Primo scrap clay. Since I mix all my clays together, I'm going to have to use packages of clay, and I would just want to show you that you can take just any color clay and change it. I've got the fuchsia clay, started to condition it. I'm not using the whole package. I don't want to change it all to black, but I'm just going to add this small percentage to it, see how it changes, and I'll be right back. Wow, that really did change that up a whole lot. This is more like an eggplant black. I personally will not go any further with this because I really like this color. If you want pure black, you could probably add more, but there is one question I have. Sorry, we have a major thunderstorm going on. This is the third day in a row, so I'm just gonna film through it. But my big question is, if I add just Primo clay, what will I get compared to adding the blackout clay? You know, I've added just that teeny smidge of, now this is, the other one was doubled, so in all fairness, it would have been about that much of the blackout that I added to get that color. Let me see what color I get if I just add black clay to the fuchsia. Now, adding the same amount, look at the difference from the blackout clay. This is how I've got this beautiful deep eggplant, almost blackish color. But then adding just regular black clay, you get more of a raspberry pink versus that fuchsia pink. So you definitely don't get the same effect by adding regular clay, because I know somebody's going to ask me, well, what does regular clay do? It just makes it a little bit darker. I'm going to make a flower out of this, and we'll keep this separately so we can compare how they bake. I actually don't have a lot of Fimo clay. Here is the Fimo Effect. I only have this. This one has the glitter in it, which is clear. So this one probably won't take a lot. I'm going to condition it and then I'll be back, but I just wanted to show you I'm working with the Fimo Effect Glitter Silver. So this will probably come out like the Twinkle from Primo. Now I have that silver glitter clay conditioned, and this has got a lot of translucent clay in it, so it won't need a whole lot. This blackout clay, think of this as seasoning. You wouldn't want to add a ton of seasoning when you first start cooking. You can always add a little bit more. Think of it as the exact same thing. So you only want to add just a little bit, and this is a very thin little piece I've just wedged off. This is probably going to turn this totally black, so I'll be right back and let's see. Now that really did darken up quite a bit. It's almost at black, just a shade lighter than black, but it's really pretty, so I actually don't want to darken this either. Think of when you're doing this, if you want the total black, keep adding it, but this is like one titch away from total black. It's like the Twinkle Black from Primo, and you don't have to get your clay to total darkness. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes you get these gorgeous colors that are just so usable right as they are versus the color you had before. Leave it at that. You don't have to be stuck. This is not a must-be black clay concept. This is taking clays that you probably might not use, like this silvery clay, and changing it up to something that may be more dramatic. And because there is such a shortage of clay right now, getting black clay is actually quite difficult. This is a great alternative to using darker clays and making darker clays, and it's actually quite reasonable. So if you're looking for something like that, that's what I really think this product is designed for. I'm going to, once again, make a formation out of this and see how this additive worked with Fimo clay and how it cures. Now I have my 3 mixes all baked, and I did not test Kato clay. There's no point. Donna Kato's already checked it, said it works great. This is that Primo clay. This was the fuchsia color that I mixed in, and I got this eggplanty color black. I just want to show it to you. And I had the feeling these would bake up a little bit darker, which they all did. So it's something for you to know. And these 2 little guys just stuck together. But you can make beads with these, and these turned out to be just as thick and durable and bendable as my normal clay. I don't see any difference. I wanted to make sure that I had a dimensional flower so that if there was any melting or slouching or any kind of issue like that, you could see it. I will coat these flowers with a little bit of Kato liquid clay. That's my most favorite one, which is this one. You can also use liquid Sculpey, but Kato is much shinier, and I have it on my ring here, and I've been wearing this ring probably 4 or 5 months now, and I do the dishes, I wash everything, I don't pay attention to it, and that gold leaf has not rubbed off, so it gives a really nice seal, and it keeps it nice and sparkly. If you want it a little bit more flat, then you would use the liquid Sculpey kind of product, but it just depends what you're doing it for. I like the sparklier look. And I've created all these little beads out of the same clay just to see how they would bake up, see if they were brittle or if they changed in any way. But they feel just like my regular clay beads because I've only used such a small portion of this. That's the one thing I will recommend. Use just a small amount. Think of it as a seasoning because you really don't need to get it to a pure dark black for it to look black. This one was the Fimo, Primo, and Kato mixed together. And once again, no slouching, no melting. It looks exactly the same as any other clay piece that I've done. And the beads, just the same. They're hard, yet they still have a little flex to them when I push on them. Same as all of my normal polymer clay. And you can see how black this is at this point. Black does not photograph well, I know. That's why I added the gold leaf to it, just because otherwise it looks like a big black blob. But I like the gold leaf in it just for a highlight. This was the Fimo clay. It was the glitter clay, so it's a little translucent, so it didn't take much of the blackout clay. It looked a lot grayer before I baked it, and this is nice and strong. These are not breaking or anything. They're acting just like normal Fimo clay. Once again, no slouching. It's nice and thick and sturdy. It's not, the petals haven't gone down. Nothing has changed about this any more than if I used regular Fimo clay. So I have no problem mixing it in. I would not put 80 or 90% of the blackout. I would just use 10 to 15% max, only because why waste your money when you can keep this wonderful pigment around for future use in your studio? It's just not something I'd want to waste if you don't need that extra color. Donna also came out with this conditioning bar, and many of you may say, what the heck am I going to do with that? This is basically replacing the Fimo Mix Quick. They've discontinued that a few years back, and I loved that stuff because it used to, if you had crumbly old clay, it would just bring it back to life. And I just wanted to give you a quick look at what you do with this. So what I'm going to do is I have a really old block of clay. This may be 20 years old. Yeah, 99. So this is definitely really old. Since 1999, I would say it's definitely going to give me a hard time. Now, the way I start to condition this is I take a hammer or rubber mallet and I will bang this bar of clay on all the sides. And so I will bang it until I can't bang it anymore. Pretty much the package will break. And then I'll start to run it through the pasta machine. Now I'm going to film the pasta machine just to show you the process. And you only add this in small amounts. So here's the package, and you just take little tiny bits like this, just a little pebble of it. So this package of clay, I would add this much at a time. You may need 2 or 3 pebbles. I can't tell you how much you're going to need, but you're definitely going to add it a little at a time, because you may be surprised just moving the clay around sometimes will wake it up, and you don't need to waste all of this. You want to save this just like it's gold in your studio, because you will be amazed how handy this type of product is. And it's one of those things that you don't want to run out of. You want to keep as a basic stash, because when you have a bar of crumbly clay like this, it's a nightmare. Now here's what my package looks like after I've banged it and banged it a few times. And it actually has woke up the clay quite a bit. I actually don't think I'm gonna need much more than this to really soften this up quite a bit. You probably could do it without it, but Always good to have that extra. It is a little dry and it's still really hard. I mean, it is over 20 years old. Come on, my daughter was born in 99, so I know exactly how old this clay is. So I'm just going to move over to the pasta machine and show you how I incorporate this in and get it into a nice soft clay, because I'm sure once I put this through the pasta machine, it's gonna still have the middle that's not awoke yet. Now you can see when I fold this over how it just breaks. It's still not totally awoke. I'm going to add another little ball of mix of conditioning clay just to mix that in. It's coming together, but it's not as pliable as I like. I like it to be just a little bit more pliable. You see how that edge just still cracks and breaks? So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of the liquid clay. That seems to be enough to just make it a little bit more pliable. Now that helped a lot, but one thing that's going to help a little bit more is I'm going to lower the thickness on my pasta machine to a 3 or 4. And that will really move some of this clay and wake it up a little bit more. And you'll see that I don't have as much of this cracking and it'll become more pliable. Now you can see how supple and soft and foldable my clay is. It's not cracking anymore. I've got it totally woke up. Look at how I have that beautiful fold in there. Once you get your clay conditioned, that is the biggest deal in starting your polymer clay things. Before you use your clay, you always have to condition it. If you don't get it nice and conditioned and woke up like this, you'll have nothing but trouble. Especially if you're doing canes, you want all of your clay to be the same consistency, otherwise your canes will not reduce evenly. So that's all there is to it. And now you can see you can just take that conditioning bar and use it for all of your dried up clay and add a little bit of liquid clay to it. It doesn't matter that this is Kato brand conditioning bar with Fimo clay. It doesn't matter. It's all compatible in that aspect. So I would bake this the same as I would any of my other Fimo, Primo, or Kato clay. Well, many of you are going to ask me, is this worth it? Is this a product I would recommend? I purchase all my own products. No one gives me free product. I prefer to purchase my own product because this way I feel like I can say whatever I want. And I absolutely love this product. This is pure genius. There's nothing bad to say about it other than I can't believe no one thought of it sooner, because it is just the most brilliant idea. I'm always running out of black clay. Right now there's a clay shortage. If you're wondering, does it work with souffle clay? Does it work with Cernet clay? I only have Fimo and Primo and Kato. I'm not going to show you how it works with Kato because I know it works, so I'm not going to waste my time or your time with that. If you have clay that is of a different brand, you could check it out and try it and see if it works. Right now there is a clay shortage. It is very hard to get clay, so I could not buy souffle clay if I wanted to. It's sold out in every store, just like mostly the Primo is. So I'm taking other clays and mixing them. I've been doing that for years because there's always been clay shortages in different areas, different times. So it's something I'm kind of used to. And also the conditioning bar, this is very similar to this Fimo Mix Quick. This is actually a little stickier. I like this a lot better. The Mix Quick was kind of hard. This is much softer and easier to work with, and what a difference this makes right away. I like to top it off with a little bit of the liquid clay just because it seems to make it a little bit more supple, but that's personal choice and that's just a trick I like to use. So I hope I gave you lots of ideas, and if you're wondering about this blackout clay or the conditioning bar, they are well worth the price. Just be really sparing with it and think of it as a seasoning, and it won't mess up your clay.